Procedure 1B, combat. And this is activation from cheat movement combat, so general front activation. But in this activation, in the same manner as in move activation, there are steps that are used in every activation. So let's begin. A. Activate all units. And there's an indicator that artillery can be deployed in this activation. A. Activate all units, including out-of-command units. B. Conflicting orders for armies with turned HQ or movement combat. Reduce HQ range. So again, as a reminder, if general movement combat was ahead of time, it would create conflicting orders. In this case, we have activated 10th Army from HG Sud counter. And this is indicated by Army HQ turned 90 degrees to remind that this army was activated by this single army activation. And this will cause not only a limited command range, in this case from 12 to 11, but also a negative modifier in combat. Next step is select target hexes and set artillery on the map. The sentence select target hexes is simply to think where do you want to attack with which units and which units are activated. And set artillery. Artillery, when it's not already on the map, it stays on HQ counter. It can be set on clear terrain, at least 2 hexes from enemy unit, and it will support combats in radius of 4 hexes. And this is not precise position of artillery, but kind of a Schwerpunkt. And in the same manner it works on Polish side. So it's accumulation of resources, ammunition, and general advance direction. So we set the artillery. Then step D, mark foot infantry divisions with attack plan. So any mobile divisions like cavalry, panzer divisions or motorized divisions don't have to plan their attacks. They can adjust to the situation. But all of infantry units have to all be marked where are those units are going to attack. Moreover, armored divisions, mobile divisions of any type, advance after combat immediately, effectively changing the chain of zones of control and can affect next combats that are going to be fought in the same activation. In case of infantry divisions, only infantry attack marker goes, and division or unit doesn't automatically go, which means infantry units, as their pace of advance is slower, don't change zones of control and cannot affect another fights in the same activation. So let's say this one unit is going to attack this one. This one unit cannot attack because it's marked with hex, with X, which means it cannot advance after combat, which means it cannot move, which means it cannot attack. And those 2 units are going to attack this Polish regiment, and this has to be marked. Next, perform attacks with procedure F to P, excluding X units. So with different color, we have steps F to P, and if you check other activations, for example, motorized corps, perform procedures combat 1B F to P. Plan West, perform procedures combat 1B F to P. So no matter what activation you have preceding, you always go back to this procedure, and there's everything written in the steps. So perform attacks, and we go to the first attack. So it's F, pick a hex to be attacked, and F1, motorized armored in group attack, have half strength over Unbridged River, because Panzer division, any mobile division, well, actually Panzer and motorized divisions cannot attack over Unbridged River ever. But if they're adjoining infantry divisions, they can use half of their strength to add to this combat. Then step G, assign support. First attacker decision, then defender decision. And there's tactical air raid, tank battalion, artillery, armored train, or battleship in case of battle for Gdynia, Oksywie, or Hell. Then step H, strength ratio attacker defender. So let's say this panzer unit is going to attack this Wileńska cavalry brigade. So we assign support. So let's say we don't need artillery, because artillery is the only support that gives column shifts. Or let's say that Polish army actually has set up artillery of itself. Then the German player can in advance assign artillery. So let's assign artillery, and let's assign tactical air raid. Tactical air raids can be assigned in two ways. One, to give positive DRM in battle. The second one is to bombard rear of the enemy, which will cause extra step loss if unit will be forced to retreat. Then roll D6, 2d6, red and white. Check coordination. We're gonna check this in a moment, and then dice roll result. Basically, you have white and red dice. Priority is 3 or 4 on any of those. If 3 and 4 are on both, or on none of them, then the red is priority. So let's say we rolled 3 on the red, or 3 on the white and 5 on the red, and the result will be 3. Then we adjust result with DRMs, with confusion, terrain, support, and then we check clash effect. So let's go to tables. We're not going to go through every die roll modifier. I think they're pretty clear. So first, German player decided that he's going to use artillery, and the Polish player will also decide to use artillery, and those two artilleries will and this artillery will be simply not used in this case. So ratio is 6:1, so we check 6:1. We have modifier from conflicting orders, because we have conflicting orders on the track, as mentioned, and this is the only modifier that's going to be used in this clash. So 3 on 6:1 -1 means DDR. DDR is defender desperate retreat, which means defender retreats 2 hexes and takes 1 step loss if retreats through defensive terrain, plus Sztuka loss. And in this case, this unit has no other option to retreat through defensive terrain, because this is the first hex. Then there's a river, defensive terrain. There's a defensive line, which means defensive terrain. There's no way to escape through other terrain than defensive. So let's say it escapes here, takes step loss because of the defensive terrain that he had to cross, and because there was a Sztuka raid on the rear of the brigade, then another step loss is added to this unit. Go back to procedure. We check if legendary crash occurred. Not in this case. If this brigade defended and German Panzer Division took loss, then the Panzer Division loss would create legendary battle. And then there is mandatory advance after combat. Infantry attacks only move with the attack plan. So this division advances. In case of Panzer divisions, so let's say this unit didn't escape. In this case, Panzer division, instead of failed advance after combat, can always deploy Spearhead. And then we mark daily losses in HQs and loss track. So, brigade from Prusy army lost 2 steps. So, those 2 steps we record on the step loss track, 1 and 2. And in this case, this counter got to the last space of the loss track, which means replacements go 1 down and Polish side loses 1 morale. And it goes back to the front. In case of German losses, only replacement is lost, and if it's on 0, the counter will be turned to -1. And then we go back to F, which is written right here. Q. Perform next attack with procedure F to P. So again, let's go now faster with this. We have only one attack left. So right here we have 2-unit combined attack on 1 Polish regiment. So we go back to F. Pick a hex to be attacked. Assign support. Attacker versus attacker first, then defender. Okay, so let's assign 1 artillery. 2 artillery barrages can be assigned to 1 attack. Then strength ratio, roll, coordination check. So strength will be, from this unit will be 2. And from this regiment will be 1 versus Polish 1. This is 3-1 for now. And then we have to make a coordination check. If more than 1 unit attacks, even from the same hex, you always have to check coordination. So let's say we rolled 5 on red and 6 on white. Coordination will fail. Why? Because coordination is dependent on road length from HQ. In this case, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hexes. You take base number of 12, and then you subtract number of hexes divided by 2. So it's simpler to do with your 2 fingers. So for example, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is 4 from HQ, which will mean that coordination value is 12 minus 4, it's 8. If on both dice result is higher than coordination, in case for German attacks, in case of Polish attacks higher or equal to coordination value, then attack is not coordinated and both units will not attack. And with the same result, you pick the strongest unit in the group. In this case, this will be this division with strength of 2. And this division and only this division makes this attack. So ratio goes down from 2 to 1, from 3 to 1 to 2 to 1. But we used artillery, which will adjust column back to 3 to 1. And we rolled 5 on red, 6 on white, which means 5 is priority and the result will be 5. But we have 2 modifiers in this case. So 5 is DDR, Defender Desperate Retreat, but we take into account conflicting orders, which is 1, because there's one ahead is previous activation, and also we take after failed multi-unit coordination attack, which is another -1. So this attack will suffer -2 to its die roll. So 5 will turn into 3, which will be DR. And DR is defender retreat, which means defender retreats 2 hexes, but can stop after 1 hex in defensive terrain or on friendly unit. If Stuka raid was declared to bombard the rear, that would be anyway step loss. But in this case, this unit can retreat through the river. River is defensive terrain, so if unit wants to stop, it can stop. And we mark with DFR. Now, this unit was cancelled from the attack, so it didn't attack. This unit advances after combat. Well, attack plan at first. Let's go back to the procedure. Then, okay, so clash effect, legendary clash, check, mandatory advance after combat, infantry attacks only, move attack plan, mark daily losses in HQ and lost track, there was no losses, Q perform next attack, we're done with all attacks, are advanced infantry units to corresponding attack plans. Now after all battles are finished, then and only then infantry units advance on their attack plans. So this unit advances here, and this is not optional. In case of successful group attack, one unit must advance, but no more. So if you attack with 3 units, only one has to advance, but all can advance. And of course we rise DFR for this unit because it moved 1 hex. And then place movement combats cheat 4 spaces away and advance time 1 space. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this activation will affect all German activations until 5 p.m. And we move time. And as this activation is already in the past, we can turn the 10th Army HQ right back. So this is procedure 1B, combat for general activation, and also procedure F to P for every combat that will be fought on the map. Well, there are many more cases of let's say exceptional situations, but all of those situations are written in the full procedure, and you can find this if you read this carefully step by step. I think you can find everything in here. So for example, there's everything about any support, so Luftwaffe, artillery, tank battalion, armored train, battleship support. And then if we go down in this main procedure book, you're going to also find informations about bridges, about Red Army offensive, about isolated units, about command, how command chains work, logistics and supply, and this is important for German corps, fighting in pockets, and in the back there are all morale changes listed, legendary battles, and all combat modifiers. So this is combat 1B.